All righty, good afternoon, everyone. We are about 10 minutes late, and we apologize. We wanted to make sure we were all here for this very important organizational meeting. I will now call this meeting into order. And our first item on our agenda is a moment of silence. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. I will now pass the gavel to Dr. Lum for the election of the board chair. If you want to. Yeah. I think we should probably do public comment after the election. Okay, well, before you take over, so we have our agenda here, which is the basic organizational meeting, and we need to add, since this is our only meeting in the month of July, we've been advised that we only open meeting in the month of July. We've been advised that public comment is necessary, and so I would like to add it after the election of the chair and the vice chair. Does that meet with everyone's approval? Okay. Do we need to vote on that, Mr. Sue? It's consensus?
Not if it's common consent. No.
A common consent. Okay. And so now it is added after the election of the chair and the vice chair.
In a moment, I will call for nominations for the office of Chair of Durham Public Schools Board of Education. The board will follow the procedure contained in new policy 2200. Nominations do not require a second. If more than one person is nominated, the board will vote on nominees in order of nomination. The first person to receive a majority of board members present is elected chair. Nominations are in order for the office of board chair. Are there any nominations?
Mr. Superintendent, I'd like to nominate Mike Lee as chair.
Thank you, Ms. Fort Brown. Are there any other nominations? If not, nominations for the office of board chair are closed. Those in favor of Mike Lee as chair say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Mike Lee is elected chair by a vote of 7-0. It's unanimous. I now pass the gavel to Mike Lee. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now the nominations are in order, and the nominations are in order for the office of vice chair. Are there any nominations?
Oh, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, is this, no one else is speaking but me? Is anybody else speaking?
I sent you a text.
I'd like to nominate Natalie Byer for vice chair.
Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Steve Unruh.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All right, so we'll go through the two. Those in favor of Natalie Byer as vice chair, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Well, Vice Chair, yeah,
Are those in favor of
yeah,
Stephen?
okay. Those opposed, say no.
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 All right. And then we'll go to the next is those in favor of Steve Unruh as Vice Chair, say aye.
Aye.
Natalie, you voted twice. Oh,
That was the
okay.
same? Okay. So that was a different motion.
Was a different
All
one.
right, so that was, it was 2-5 for Natalie. Those in favor of, I'll do this vote again for Steve. Those in favor of Steve Unruh as Vice Chair, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, those opposed, say no. Hearing none. Steve Unruh is elected the Vice Chair of Durham Public Schools Board of Education by vote of, did you vote?
I didn't
So,
vote because
okay.
I don't understand it, but I mean, hey.
All right, 6 to 1. Congratulations.
No, congratulations. Okay, congratulations.
You want to say anything, Steve?
I don't need to say anything, no. I just say thanks. I'm honored by the nomination, by the support of the board, and look forward to trying to continue the work that we've been doing. So thank you.
I wanted to take a moment to express my thanks to everyone here for their vote of confidence in me as chair again. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone here because at some point in the year last year I had to lean on each one of you guys for some reason or another. And your support actually really made the job easier. There's a lot of different things that come that I was not expecting that comes with being a chair, and with you all next to me, it really did make a difference. This morning, as a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with my son Nicholas, and very true story. He's watching right now, so I'm sure he's probably laughing. And he had told my wife the night before last night that he said, I want you to be on the board until I graduate and go to college. And so she told me about that this morning. I called him in the room and I asked him, well, what is it about me being on the board that helps your life? I mean, what difference does it make? And he thought for a little bit and he tried to form the words. And he said, well, if you're not on the board, somebody might get on the board that might not do good stuff. But with you being on the board, I know that you'll do good stuff. And so as we move forward this year, not that we don't or haven't, but let's do some good stuff, for Durham. We have a lot of things happening. Let's do good stuff for, oh yeah, I got to give him one of these here. Yeah. Let's do good stuff for the kids of Durham because they notice. If my son can notice what we do as a board, every child in Durham could notice that. So that's my charge moving forward for this year. Let's do some good stuff. Okay? All right. The next item was public comment. We didn't have sign-up sheets. But if anyone is interested in public comments for this meeting, you have 3 minutes. You can be at the podium if you'd like.
Good afternoon.
Good
Once
afternoon.
again, my name is Antonio Jones. I think you know me by now. First, I agree with your son, Mike Lee. It's time for Durham to do great things, good things. I like great things. Yeah. However, I'm kind of disappointed by the loss of a highly qualified area superintendent to a neighboring county, as well as some other names that showed up on the personnel report last month. But I am excited to hear that 42 individuals are vying for the job of the superintendent of Durham Public Schools. I think that is promising. Quick thing, so I read an article that says that the North Carolina Office of State and Budget Management predicts that Durham is going to grow by 25,000 people over the next 5 years. So according to my math, that's about 5,000 people per year newly that's coming to Durham. On the flip side, we are projected to lose 400 students next year. So in my mind, that math didn't add up. We gain people, yet we lose students. That's not a good trend to set when you put that against $1 billion of economic development going on across Durham. High-wage jobs relocating to Durham, as we've seen the announcement, I think, last week. And local businesses are expanding. That is a very good thing for the county. So as you filter through these applications, what I would like to have you to consider is who amongst those 42 people can effectively lead Durham Public Schools to be one of the top school systems in the state of North Carolina. And as you said, if your son is watching you, Mr. Lee, that means other people are watching and waiting to see what their next move will be based on the selection you're going to make as the next superintendent. So in closing, leadership matters. So there have been hundreds of thousands of books, articles, peer-reviewed journals, lectures, and conferences given on the subject of effective leadership. And I'll be willing to bet that there's some kind of consensus that effective leaderships will and can have a profound impact on organizations. Durham Public School is in need of a profound impact, profound positive impact. We need a superintendent who is knowledgeable, innovative, energetic, passionate, and willing to fight for all students, as Mr. Lee mentioned earlier. So in short, leadership, strong leadership, effective leadership matters, and poor leadership have consequences. So as you deliberate over these 42 applicants, I would urge you to pick the one who is right for Durham and right for Durham Public Schools and right for all students and citizens in Durham County. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to offer public comment? Okay. I'll make sure we get it.
Hi, my name is William Jackson. I am the Chief Dreamer, aka Executive Director of Village of Wisdom. I live on Guthrie Avenue in Durham. I guess my public comment is, I think one about the communication and transparency of the current kind of construction of how we got into the place of the call for applications being put out and the applicants we have now. So like a reflection on that process so far. And then also a suggestion for the types of questions that are asked specifically to those superintendent candidates. So the first part is that as somebody who has, I'm gonna assume, more free time than the average parent or teacher or whatever, because I remember when I was teaching, I didn't have any time. It was really hard for me today in about an hour to find any information about the data that you all collected from the community that helped to guide the description of the superintendent stuff. So I went on the superintendent websites. I went on the school board's website. I looked through the last couple of agenda items, and I couldn't find the analysis of the survey results on those agenda items. I scrolled through you all's Facebook page. I did see where it was loaded on the Facebook page to give the survey out, but I couldn't find it. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying it wasn't real easy. I think, and also I didn't necessarily get an email or see a notification about the survey going out. I had to go back through the Facebook timeline. So I just think if there's any other way that that email list can be broadened, if you all can get on Instagram or Facebook, I just don't know how that stuff gets out. I did hear that maybe it goes out to the parents through like an email. And then I guess the other thing is just to remember that this is the summertime, right? So people are on vacation, right? And so I think there's an extra preponderance or extra responsibility on the school board to really engage folks around communication. And we'd be happy to do that as well. We just had an event this past Sunday from 3 to 6, and we had more than 300 people show up. And we let people know about that the week before, right? So like our communication channels as an organization is good, and I think folks like Student U and other community organizations would be happy to send that information out on you all's behalf so that more people can be engaged. In the last 24 seconds, I would just like to say that it's really key that we center questions about racial equity, culturally responsive pedagogy, and how this particular potential superintendent is thinking about placing really key roles that I know are coming up as assistant superintendents are going away. So how are y'all talking about that? I think it's just really key. And I'll try to follow up with exact questions via email to everybody. And if y'all could share that back, it would be awesome so that we know like what questions are being asked. Because right now I feel in the dark and I don't want to feel that way.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else?
I think that is so important that I know we're not supposed to address public comment, but to speak to Dr. Jackson's point regarding communication and how that communication went out and what our timeline was, and could you ask Chip to come forward? Because see, if you've got 300 parents and they're asking you, and it only takes a little bit of information to go out and say, well, I didn't get it, and I didn't get it, and I didn't get it. So we need to find out, we need to talk about that kind of thing. Do you think we could take a minute to just clear that up?
How's the board feel? Yeah? Yeah.
We got this side over here that said okay.
Yes.
What about that side over there?
Yeah, I got okays over there. Chip?
I'll ask Tanya Nelson to chime in as necessary. We had a pretty tight turnaround from the time that the decision to do community conversations was taken, and the aggressive timeline that's been set by the board to go through this. So we did robocalls to all households to announce that the surveys were out and to invite people to the 3 locations, which were not established all at the same time. We had, I think we lined up 1 or 2 of the sites for the community conversations before the 3rd was in place. So we used robocalls to all households. We did use social media and notifications on our websites, and I shared information. And I apologize, I wasn't prepared, but I do believe that I shared information with the major organizations, El Centro, People's Alliance, Durham Committee, inviting participation at those. Clearly, I'm hearing that participation was not as great at the forums as we would have liked. We did have media coverage about that, but we certainly would have liked to have seen more participation.
Did it go out on Facebook?
Yes, yes. Also,
Was it announced in the newspaper?
Yes.
And I've been going through school websites. It's been on. I still see it on all the school websites.
Yes, it was. Information was posted on all of the individual school websites as well as the district site.
Did you believe that you've exhausted all of the typical outlets that we use to get the information out?
I wasn't a town crier. I didn't stand at the South Point. I'd say that we made a good faith effort, but I'm always pretty self-critical about what more we possibly could have done.
Now the results that we saw at our last meeting, are those on the website? So,
Yes, I'm looking at those now. That's where that's why I have found the information from the community comments. They are on our minutes from our last meeting, June 22nd. Okay. They're under the minutes and the agenda, excuse me. They're under the agenda, and they're listed as a part of the agenda.
But there wasn't a separate.
So, Dr. Jackson.
There was no separate link on the front page.
All right, look at that and see if you see that. You look at that and see if you see that. because I know you're a techie person too.
I will take that as a teachable moment, though, and I'll try to, within the next couple of days, get that information pulled from the minutes and added to the superintendent search page. One-stop shopping.
And I just want to say that we thank you for coming forward and volunteering Student U and Village of Wisdom to add in to what Greg does with the Herald Sun and what we do on Facebook. And I don't know if we use Instagram, and if we tweet, we could take something from Donald. Donald tweets. We could certainly use something from our 45th and learn how to do that every morning. But certainly we appreciate it, because it is important that our parents know what we're doing. Our community knows what we're doing, what we're charged to do, and that their input is valued, because it's their babies that are coming to our schools. So we certainly appreciate you bringing that information to us and volunteering your help. So you're going to be getting with Chip to let him know how we get that information out. Thank you so much.
Tanya, Allison, do you have anything you want to add to that? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that the superintendent search page is under resources on our main menu. Then you go to resources and you'll find the superintendent search page.
Is it possible to move it out from the resources section onto the front page? The superintendent search is underneath the resources section of our website, so if we can move it out from resources to the front page so people can easily access.
Right. Durham Public Schools is looking for a superintendent. If you want to add in, go to this link. I mean, you know, it makes it clear, because you wouldn't know to, turn on the mic, right. It has to be very clear to people. I'm not sure you needed it, I probably didn't, but Anya told me to, and so I'm doing as I'm directed. It is very important that we let people know how they can find information. That's one of our biggest faults, is people don't know how to navigate the system. And so if we make it clear to people, you know, when you go to Duke My Chart, they tell you exactly what to do to get to Duke My Chart. And so anybody can do it. And so that's what we have to be able to do. If we are looking for a superintendent, we want your input. It is valued. Click on this. Thank you.
Since we're in the weeds on this, but I do feel like we do have a responsibility to make our packets accurate as we go. Sometimes we bring materials to meetings that I think need to be scanned in and reposted so that we can all access this information freely. So, Mike, I'll relay that to you through email.
Right. You did.
Okay.
Before.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We're taking care of that. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? All right. The next item on the agenda is the 2017-2018 Board of Education meetings calendar approval. In your,
it's in there.
Yeah, everybody should have a copy of this.
Could I offer an adjustment and get the administration's feedback?
Sure.
So I'm looking at the row that begins with December 7th, and I note that the regular board meeting is a Thursday heading into a long holiday weekend. I think I checked when Thanksgiving was, and it looks like we moved up the November board meeting to avoid Thanksgiving. I'm wondering if we can't shift the 3 meetings a week earlier to have the academic meeting November 30th, the operations meeting December 7th, and the board meeting December 14th. Kind of for the same reason that we don't often meet in July, that a lot of people are focused on other things at that time. And if I'm not mistaken, and at the risk of infuriating people, is this another year where we have a 1-week winter break?
Yes. And that was on my comment to make this evening. But my suggestion is a little bit different from yours, Mr. Sears.
Okay.
Because of the structure that you have now with 2 work sessions and a full board meeting, and you are making decisions and doing the work that is necessary to keep the school system going, my suggestion is to have just 2 work sessions in December and not have a meeting on the 21st.
I can live with that.
And the other thing you could do is leave the 21st on as a placeholder should there be some emergency that you would need to deal with. But my experience is that you can get your work done in 2 work sessions.
Yeah, that's what happened last year.
Right.
Right. That's last December. We decided not to do a meeting.
And other school systems I've worked on, it's a very common practice not to have that last meeting right before the winter holiday.
So are we saying to keep the work sessions the same, 14th and 18th, and no 21st? Or
No, 7th and 14th?
7 and 14, they're at the beginning of the month. And then
7 and 14, okay. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking at.
Now, I really like the way we're looking at our schedule and making sure that we're cognizant of the time. Did I hear you say that our teachers will only have 1 week out? We only have 1 week?
because of the calendar and the way that we have to do the calendar is that this past year and then this coming year, they're both the same because school starts, you can, and help me if I'm wrong, you can start school as no earlier than the 25th, but it has to be next to a Monday or something or other. So our first day of school this year is late.
Right.
And last year I believe it was the 29th.
So we'll have plenty of subs for that week, because clearly, I mean, I want us to be, just like we're making sure that we don't have that board meeting. We need to understand what the deal is. That when do they have a chance to do what they need to do to be with their families? I mean, I think we need to. And I know it's late, it's the last thing, but, just understand that that's what's going to happen.
Ms. Fort Brown, the board did ask that we would re-examine the calendar for this coming year, and we did. And I personally went to the person who works through it, and that there aren't any changes that we can make.
I'm fully confident that the staff looked at every opportunity. They had plenty of self-interest in trying to make
Lots
that
of self-interest,
work.
Mr. Unruh.
I have seen those meetings. I know how hard people work to try to make that happen. I strongly suggest going ahead and sending the Christmas cards to state legislators now, thanking them for their thoughtfulness in eliminating our holidays.
Yeah.
And we have almost no control anymore over our calendar at all, that from start to finish, including the holidays. So we go through this process of setting a calendar, but really they've restricted it so much that we bump around a couple of minor holidays and that's it. It's a terrible calendar.
Now, I knew that we were kind of going to be in this situation for a few years. How much further? How many more years will we be in this situation?
Do you remember? I think it was only for 2 years. Yeah.
2 years.
And this is the second year coming up.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then the next year.
We should be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So do we have consensus on that December idea that we would keep them as is and maybe keep the December 21st as optional? Was that coming out of that discussion?
Yes.
If there's a way to note that?
And we'll vote on that. We have to vote on the calendar, but we will make that decision on the 14th, right? Well, if we're going to have the 21st, or just
Absolutely, but I think you can have some confidence. Looking at your history, is that the work of the board is really being done in those 2 work sessions, and so I think you're going to be okay.
Okay. All right.
Can I raise a different question?
Yes.
Are we okay with December?
Yeah. I think so.
I just want to do a quick check on whether we're going to have a quorum on August 3rd. So my memory of that calendar, coming
In 2 weeks.
in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not going to be here.
I will not be here.
I will not be here.
We won't have a quorum. What? I'll be here.
So Mike, it's
Let's
all
do
you.
it,
Yeah, we'll do it. Me, Xavier, Bert, Aaron,
And when's the next meeting after that?
Stacy. The 10th.
That's,
Or the
are
September
you all going to
7th?
be, are you going to have a quorum on the 10th?
I think so, from my memory of that.
That's going to become an important meeting.
So my suggestion would be just, you know, tighten our belts, combine, because there's gonna be a lot of work that's gonna have to get done to get kind of school started, and just
Oh,
do
yeah.
a combined meeting that
Or,
day.
or do the 8th and the 10th, the Tuesday and the Thursday. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing,
Well,
I mean, if I was staff, I
The
would
work,
rather have
the
one
the
long.
work, yes, the work that I'm concerned about would be personnel work, and it's closed session work.
We,
so how about we shift to.
Yeah, can I add something? I'm sorry, I don't mean to. Yes, I think you're right, because we intend on bringing, even though the General Assembly has really complicated our work in presenting a pay scale for principals on the 3rd, I'm thinking, Mr. Boyer, the 10th would probably be better.
Yes, that would be helpful.
That would be helpful, okay.
or, I'm just doing it live here, we've got some challenges around March and April too that I think we should talk about, but we do have an empty Thursday there. Can we not meet 3 Thursdays in a row as needed?
What, are you in August now?
In August, yeah, I'm talking the 10th, the
This year.
17th,
We're talking about this year, right?
the 24th. Mhm.
Well, see, that's what I was about to say. Can we just shift down to the 10th, 17th, 10th and 17th? You know, so I would say academic services on the 10th, operational services on the 17th. Oh, you're switch? Okay, so maybe the academic services on the 17th.
See how cooperative they are?
Academics on
The
17th.
17th. Academics on the 17th,
Mhm.
operations on the 10th.
Operations on the 10th as listed.
That's fine. How we,
That's a good idea,
Well-
guys.
And a different challenge. So March 29th is the day before
What-
spring break. Oh,
let's-
sorry.
Let's
Finish
let's
this one?
finish
All right.
August. Let's make sure. No, I know Minnie's out on the 17th, but that's okay. We can. Anybody else have any plans? All right. So that's what I'm gonna make note of. When we do the motion, we'll talk about all of this. Okay. The 10th,
March, I think.
10th for academic services.
No, 10th is
No, 10th for
operational.
operations. 17th for academic services. Okay. Let's go to March.
So March 29th is the Thursday before Good Friday, which will lead into spring break. So if we pushed these meetings to April, so we have academic services April 12th, we have operations on April 19th, and then we could have our regular board meeting on April 26th. We don't run into vacation. All right, let's try one more time. All right, so March 29th, academic services. That is the Thursday before spring break. So
Okay.
Good Friday is the 30th. So if we push, instead of starting March 29th, start on April 12th,
For
which is a
academic
Thursday
services.
for academic services. April 19th, I think, is the next week for operations, and then have the board meeting on April 26th.
Okay. Good. I'm good with that. 12th, 19th, 26th. I'm very good with that. So there's no change to the big board meeting. It's just a work
Right,
session.
just the work sessions.
Objections to that? Okay. All right. Anyway, any other?
and did you all consider graduations already? Great. 'Cause
And,
those are
and the
fun.
reason how come it's different from the winter break is that, you know, in April, you're going to have all your meetings. That's your budget time.
Yeah.
You know, so those,
Yeah,
you
we
can't,
definitely have
you
to
can't skip any meetings at those dates.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So that's what this meeting's about. This is an organizational meeting. So this is good stuff. All right. So I will accept a motion for approval of the calendar noting these changes.
They'll move. You want me to read the changes?
I'm about
Are you
to-
going to read the
yeah, I'm
changes?
about to read the
Okay,
changes. All right. Our August 3rd meeting for academic support services will move to August 17th. Our December, regular monthly board meeting becomes optional. Our April calendar is as follows. Academic support services work session, April 12th. Operational services, April 12th, yeah.
Yeah.
Operational services and policy work session, April 19th. And the regular board meeting stays the same. Those were the only changes. So I'll accept the motion. Yeah, but that's separate. That's, the agenda approval is set.
So
Agenda
I move
review is
I move to adopt the Board of Education meetings as amended by Mike.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded that we approve the 2017-2018 Board of Education meetings as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. It is approved unanimously. We will now move into the superintendent search update. Okay. No, just at the beginning of the session.
We had public comment.
I presume that means I'm supposed to speak?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Things are moving along. As we told you, we have 42 applications, which is a really large number. We have been trying to get you applications in stages since you have in a short timeline in which to review them. So we got you some Friday of last week. We sent some out around the time this meeting started, so you have more to look at. And then there's one final batch with about 8 or 9 left. So we've tried to do it in a way that's organized, that gives them to you so you don't get overwhelmed. We want to make sure that you feel like you have access to those. So if you're having any trouble accessing the materials online, let us know. But we're very excited about that number. We hope you're going to find some folks in there that you're interested in. As we said in the correspondence we sent you, we normally recommend you interview between 7 and 10 people, so that's about the number you're looking for out of that pool. If anyone needs their access code and hasn't been able to get into their with the website, I have them here if you need them, your passwords again, okay? Just let me know. We are here today to update you on where we are, to answer any questions, and also to discuss incorporating the information that came from the surveys and the community input into what the board is thinking and it has digested from the information that Tanya presented on June 22nd, I think that was. So we have sent you some materials, I think, that we had from that survey meeting. I also have hard copies if you'd like them in front of you. Would you like those? Please. We just wanted to review a few things for the benefit of your audience, so that we can sort of refresh your memories as well. We did get staff and surveys completed. They were anonymous but not confidential, which meant that unless they were personnel comments, the personnel comments were redacted. But basically, the rest of that is public record. I believe someone indicated it is on your website, just under the meetings attachment. So we did have a separate staff and community survey, but basically asked the same questions, but had different demographics to kind of compare that. We had 390 start the community survey and 384 finish. That's actually pretty good. We usually have a lot more that drop out in the middle of it, so that's actually good. And This is just a copy of what's already been shared at the last meeting. So I just wanted to kind of recap that for just a minute. And then staff surveys, you had 750 start and 730 complete. Again, an excellent number for staff. We usually see about the 300 to 400 range in both categories for district this size. We did try really hard to get that information out before the end of the school year, so staff obviously responded. And information that was also shared with you was information about what was said at the kitchen tables, and any community organizational statements that were made. And so that was all shared with the board at that meeting. We probably don't have time to recap too much of that, but I just wanted to make sure that it's clear to everyone watching that that information has been shared with the board and is publicly available, and we'll be happy to make sure that that information is in the form that it needs to be to get it out in a different way, if that would be preferable. So the goal here today is to take all that information and come up with what the board is thinking. And we sent you some samples about what we're looking to do. The idea is to get a rating sheet or some information that just kind of captures what the board's priorities are. And let's just talk about what we're doing here. Is really we're getting the board's input, every member's input into what they think you need to be looking for. We don't need to have a consensus or an agreement on that document. We will take all those comments and come up with something similar to the ones that we showed you, but based on what your needs are as a school system. So we basically use this as a rating chart that you can use as a tool when you're reviewing the applications. And we also use that information to help draft questions. The gentleman that spoke before was asked about submitting questions of things that are interest. Certainly if the board is amenable to that, and somebody wants to submit potential questions, the board can consider asking those. And there's no, that's actually wonderful if somebody has some ideas about what questions are relevant to the superintendent search. So that kind of input is fabulous. And if you have folks in your community that have something that they're requesting, certainly the board gets to decide which questions to ask. But the more information and the more requests, the better. So just wanted to make that point. So what we'd like to do is just for the board, having had looked at this information and reviewed it all, just tell us what you as individual members think is really critical to you. Obviously you're informed by what your community has said and your staff has said, and that input is incredibly helpful, but you all kind of need to, I think, show or let your public know at this point what you think is really critical in terms of a superintendent. And so Tanya is going to take notes, and if you would just speak clearly, we will take all this information and bring it back together as a document like this. If the board is okay with that process, that's kind of how we do it, and these other documents you see from Asheville and Chapel Hill have been done in a similar way.
Okay. I'll start. And I just want to say at the preset, first of all, thank you guys for all of your help. There's a lot of communication here, and I do appreciate everything that you all are doing and allowing us to, it's kind of outside of our process, but allowing us to take the time to soak in the results and things while coming up with this list here, I think is really important to take everything into consideration. And I also want to say, just because it makes it up on this list, makes it up there on this list, doesn't mean that we're lacking of it right now. It's just something we're looking for in the future. And I want that to be abundantly clear. So this is what we're looking what we're looking for, not what we're lacking. And so for me, you know, I've done a lot of thinking about this and reading, and for me, I think our superintendent needs to be an expert in curriculum and education. You know, I think at the very, very least that I don't expect our superintendent to be an expert in every single thing, because we're just not going to find a Superman or Superwoman, you know, or a superhero as a superintendent. However, I think the person has to be able to surround themselves with experts, you know, in other areas, you know, in operations and finance, and even support on the curriculum side. We are in the business of education. However, there are a lot of things that we decide that go on in the school district that are not education, as business, you know. I think the person should have experience in similar districts, successes in similar districts as it relates to the challenges we are facing as a result of socioeconomic situations, the low performances of of children of color, the gaps that exist right now. I would love to see someone with a deep understanding and a deep experience in districts such as that. And I would like to see someone with experience with a similar size district. There are a lot of different sizes of districts, and I think, you know, there's different complications that come with those different sizes. And so with someone with an experience with somewhere around where we are, or higher, you know, would be great in my mind. And the last thing I'll put up for right now, because I'm sure I'm going to say some other things, I don't want to take up the entire time here, is I would like someone with experience in navigating complicated political environments. I know that's hard to judge. That's very hard to judge. However, I would be interested to see people's experience with navigating political action committees, navigating you know, budgetary challenges as it comes from the state or county commissioners or parish commissioners or wherever you might be from. So I'll be looking. That's what I see in a leadership for right now.
All great comments and a variety of things. Yeah. Who would like to go? Who would like to add something else at this point? Anybody else? Xavier?
I'll add to those great comments, many of which I'm sure we all had on that list. Like to see someone who has experience in building a collaborative culture to include community organizations, elected leadership, and yeah, I was saying a collaborative culture including community organizations, elected leaders, and to Mike's son's point, students, accessible to students as well. Access to students, you know, they get to see their superintendent. Within that, a part of that collaboration, the students have
Accessible to students.
Yes, have a feeling they're part of the vision and the view and the scope of what the superintendent is looking at. And now a separate point, someone who is able to deliver a consistent message and a clear direction. Someone who has demonstrated knowledge and experience in closing the achievement gap. And someone who has an understanding of the role that equity plays in academic achievement. And I'll stop there.
Keep going. Just keep going around. I'll go next once she's finished.
Got to catch up with you. Okay.
So what I had is integrity. I think this is the kind of thing that's easy to take for granted until you don't have it. And I think Dr. Lum has brought that in spades, and I would like to see someone who will continue that. The second thing is around racial equity and cultural competence, a plan and a track record.
In equity and cultural competence.
Racial equity and cultural competence.
Competence.
I would like to see someone who has experience with budget management that has clear goals and metrics. I would like to see someone who has a track record of teacher and principal retention. And someone with a track record and a clear vision around promotion of student growth.
Promotion of student growth. There are two of us, so we can, both ears can be hearing at the same time.
Ready? Ready?
Steve, are you done?
I want a mindful leader that understands the mission of job one, which is academic excellence. Job one is academic excellence. I want a superintendent that is courageous in their advocacy for racial equity and cultural proficiency. The person must be able to move the needle. Bringing experience in transforming districts for academic success with a laser focus on children of color. I got it written down.
Repeat that one, if you will.
Want them to move the needle with experience in transforming districts for academic success, with a laser focus on children of color. I want our leader to be a messenger that is confident, committed, and clear to the community. I'm not able to take the job because I'm on the school board. All right, so I will not put my application in.
The deadline is passed, by the way.
That's the only one that matches all of these. That's the only one that match all of these.
Okay, great. Okay, we've heard from that side of the room. How about the three of you? Who wants to go?
Ladies first.
I tried to make mine short, punchy, okay? And I'll try to skip ones that people have already said, but I may hit some more. I think this board is committed to social justice and equity, so that frames this entire search. So, social justice and equity, I think we're looking for someone who loves their job and loves the Durham community. I think we want a leader who loves children and understands children and children's developmental needs. I think we need a leader with longevity. Leader who is an empathetic educator. A leader who is an advocate for what is best for students. A leader that can be strong with this board, including standing up to this board if needed. A leader that inspires educators. Tanya, your hand is cramping up, but you're doing great. The very last one then is a commitment to the move towards universal pre-K in the Durham community.
Catch up for just a second.
Okay. I think I'm looking for someone who's going to be a visionary. So a person who's able to either they're from Durham, just listen to our community, or come into our community and listen and create a vision based on what they have learned about our community here, and bring in people, all the different stakeholders in Durham, their ideas to that vision. I think once a person creates a vision, I hope they can need to be a great communicator of that and be able to build buy-in. And I think that's not only from people in the district, but I think that's also from our community. You want me to keep going or you want me to slow down? I believe that this person needs to have a belief that every single child can succeed. They believe that every single child deserves valuable, excellent education. And that Durham also is a school system that can do that. I believe this person needs to be a relationship cultivator. We have a very rich community here in Durham, and I think this person needs to be able to build partnerships and relationships with all the different people. So whether that's business, whether that's the police, county commissioner, city council, all of the different folks at work, I want this person to be able to really build a great relationship with those people. I believe innovation is going to be really important for this person. Public school is changing in North Carolina, so how can they think creatively about how to solve some of the challenges that we're facing? Innovation. Sorry. Innovative. You can put problem solver maybe next to that. Mm-hmm. I think equity has come up a couple of times, but I think this understanding of like institutional racism and what that means for a school district is really important. And so what does it mean? How do you understand how that problem exists and what that looks like in Durham? And then how do we disrupt that in our school system? Someone that's bold and not willing to accept status quo, so make changes if we need to. And I also think the superintendent is a manager of people, so someone that's able to lead and coach our team, be able to rally our leaders around a vision, to be able to support collective success, but then also be able to hold people accountable, which I think is really important. And then my last one is transparency.
All right, start right with you. Okay, so my priorities are, I'm looking for someone with experience with innovation. Experience with success. I want us to be open to any background, all sizes of districts, and they don't have to be a super in the past for me. So I'm open to all open to traditional and non-traditional candidates. What do I want of them? Maybe I'm not saying anything with that. Okay. Leave that one off. I'm looking for someone that prioritizes talent. / HR, human resources. And I'm looking for someone who evaluates and holds accountable people and programs.
To add, or do you feel like that's a pretty comprehensive?
Lord have mercy.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I usually say at the end of these meetings that after we do the list, we're like, and walks on water needs to be the last one.
I did want to put one more, and it does overlap some of what's
Absolutely.
already been said. I'm pulling this from our district profile. Able to recruit, manage, and develop a high-quality staff, which is similar to what Matt just said. Ability to recruit, manage, and develop a high-quality staff.
So we will take this information. I think this is a good list. We will try to bunch the things that are similar into the broad categories and come up with a rating sheet similar to what you've had. This will also help us as we develop some sample questions for you all. But I will say to you that it would be helpful if you all have some particular questions or topics that you would like to see questions on. The sooner you can get those to us, the better. So if you have some particular ideas of things that you think need to be asked in the interviews, we can come up with some draft questions. We will go over those with the board on the 26th. So we're going to hopefully get some sample questions to you either this week or early next week. So we want to be able to incorporate your ideas and make sure we address the concerns that you have. And any other questions that, as I said, if the community folks have questions they want to submit through the chair, I think would be the best way to do that. Then we'll be glad to take those and look at them as well. And then the board will decide which question. We'll bring a bunch of samples, and then you will decide which questions you want to ask.
So that will be two parts to that meeting. We will come up with the interview question list as well as select the semifinalists.
Well, we normally do it this way. Let me just say that. We give you draft well, first of all, we will come up with the people you choose to interview. We will decide how that interview looks. So you're basically doing the who, what, when, where. We know why, of course, but you know that where you're going to be, when they're going to be, what you're going to ask, all that. We normally recommend a presentation question that the candidates do as part of the interviews. The reason that's really, really helpful is because that's what a superintendent does. You give them a question ahead of time about data, they research, they come to the board with a presentation that says, I analyze these data, this is my recommendation, this is how I would go about that. So we'll bring some samples of those kinds of questions too. If you have any ideas about a presentation you would like, that would be great. But that allows you to see what a superintendent, see them in the light that you most normally see a superintendent, which is bringing to you well thought through recommendations based on data. So that's one part of the interview we do recommend, and we can talk about that more in detail and what you want them to do. And then the rest is generally questions that people get more off the cuff like in a traditional interview. But so normally what we do is ask the board to at least come and give us the presentation question at that meeting, because we need to share that with the candidates ahead of time. They need to work on it, and they usually come with a PowerPoint or something like that. And the second would be we normally just ask board members to pick out, each of you, instead of sit there and go over every question you want to ask, which would take a very long time, for each of you to pick out 10 questions or so that you think should be asked. And then there will be a lot of overlap between what you guys choose. And you'll probably, in the interview, we normally recommend about an hour and a half. You'll probably be able to only ask about 20 questions or so, about 3 each. But if you give us 10, then we could, the ones that everybody wants to ask or most people want to ask, we can make sure those are asked. And we'll come up with a draft, we'll get some feedback from you. So we don't need to sit in a meeting and pick questions. That's sort of a long answer to your question. But if you're okay with that process, it streamlines it instead of the board, arguing about what questions need to be asked. I think again, this is a process where you're looking at not necessarily a consensus on everybody, you might want to ask a different question than you might want to ask, but everybody should get to ask the questions that they think are important. So it's a little bit more individual than everybody agreeing on the same set of questions, if that makes sense.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, Allison, we had, and Natalie, you were here, Matt and you and Mike sat in. We had a notebook, and we actually did have questions that were there that we knew, which questions each person was going to ask, and the same questions were asked to each candidate. Now, if there was something in the internet search or somebody did something extra, they're going on Google or whatever, however we did that, then those things were additional because they were like, do you have any additional questions? But we did come with a set, so it's not like, okay, Bettina thinks she want to ask this question this time, and no, Minnie going to ask this question. It is an ordered procedure.
We bring you a book that looks like this,
Yes.
that it has, and ahead of time, everybody will decide on their questions. Normally what we recommend in this circumstance is, at least at the first interview, is for everyone to ask the same question of all the candidates. So we would have a notebook, it would have the questions you intend to answer. Your name would be on top of the question that's been assigned to you for all the candidates. And again, that's to get similar information with which to compare the candidates, if you're okay with that process. And it does make it seem orderly. One of the reasons to do that is so every board member gets an equal opportunity to ask questions, and you don't have one board member who's asking all the questions and then the other board members feel like they haven't gotten to ask the questions that they most want to ask. So again, we try to make sure that everyone gets an equal opportunity to participate and get to know the candidates. And we do not recommend that anyone but the board members and the candidate be in the interviews. We will be at the interviews to facilitate them, get people in and out, make sure they're open, you get the motions made, take the minutes for you, but we don't sit in on the interviews specifically because this is your time to bond with the candidates. It's your time to develop a relationship with them, and we don't think that it's not our decision who you choose, it's your decision, and we would not want anyone to look at us and say, well, who would you recommend? Because we don't recommend. That's your decision. That's what you're elected to do, and we're very respectful of that. So just kind of give you a clue of our approach to it. And we will discuss more who in closed session, but I thought it might be helpful to lay out the process a little bit. And it's your process, so if you don't like any of that, you can change it. But we've done this a long time, and we found that works very smoothly and very professionally.
Board members, just wanted, one of the options with the presentation question is you can do one in the first round, you can do it in the second round, you can do it both times, or you don't have to do a presentation question, but we will send you sample presentation questions, as Allison indicated. And it will take some hashing through on those questions. They're generic, and it really is much more helpful if it's customized by the board. So we would just ask that you be prepared to kind of hash through that. That may take a little bit of time. I mean, you don't need to hash through the spontaneous response questions, but that presentation question, they're going to do, like, if you select to do a presentation, it's generally about a 15-minute PowerPoint, so you want to make sure that it's honing in on the issues that you've talked about. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, just as we talked about the first round interviews and the questions that are developed for that round, does the final interview, do those interviews have coming from the same pool of questions, or do you come back and start
No, we have some standard questions, but I would say to you that we have some samples for both, but the best questions are the ones that are the board's questions. So we give you samples as a place to start, but if you draft your own, that's much better than using ours. So I would think about, as we get to the meeting on the 26th, because that's the next time we'll see you, what you want to ask, and we'll get you the sample questions ahead of time. But if you have stuff you want to ask and you want to send those to us, we would really appreciate that, because it's your search, and I know you have very specific ideas about what you want and what you're looking for, and very specific things you want to make sure you ask the candidates. The second interview is generally a more specific about if there's something in the background checks or the applications that you want to follow up with, something that you are concerned about or something that you want to explore that a candidate might have said in the first interview. So it's important to take notes, and your interview books will have a place to do that.
So the sample questions you're going to send, do you all have any slant on behavior-based, experience-based questions? And can you, because we will be drafting some of our own to add to that book, can you send us anything on kind of what that is? I'm not confident I know exactly how to do it, but I do know there's a science behind that and getting actual answers as opposed to philosophies.
Yes, and we tend to have those more in the second interview, but I mean, we certainly have some behavior-based interviews, like tell me about a time when something that you recommended was not successful and what you did to fix it, or that kind of thing. Tell me about a decision you regret and what you'd do differently. That's what you're talking about, that kind of thing. Yeah, we have some of those in the samples as well. But like I said, any more, you all are very smart professional people, and a lot of you have done interviews yourselves, and if you have anything that you think needs to be added or that you think is important to ask, please send those on to us, okay?
Allison, you said that happens normally, the behavior-based questions normally happen in the second
just in our sample questions, we have more of those, but I mean,
Okay.
we can certainly we can give you all of what we have, and you can do them in the first interview. It's completely up to you what you ask, as long as it's not illegal, which is part of why we screen them ahead of time, I'm sure, and make sure your attorney's okay with them. But you all know the questions you can't ask, and so that's sort of a preliminary screening. But also, it's more professional if the questions are decided ahead of time, and you're not kind of like, well, let me see, what do I think? I mean, it just if you know what you're asking ahead of time, it's just a much smoother process. So, okay.
Can I ask that you send all the questions
Sure,
to
if
us?
we get to.
And I did want to point out at the last time when me and Matt were just observing, some of the questions just led to other conversations, so there's just kind of some follow-on questions that are going to happen. So I think these predetermined questions allows us to ask to measure, apples to apples, basically. But sometimes just the result of them leads to other questions. So wait, you need to clarify that, or you need to, or what do you mean by this or that? And so I think, I don't think it is as rigid as some might think. It's just kind of opening a conversation make sure that we're comparing everyone kind of on the same metric. And so we can, kind of fill out this rating chart kind of in that sense.
Yeah, you need to be flexible is what you're saying in the
Right.
interviews if you have follow-up questions. And honestly, some people will be so anxious to get the information out, they'll answer 5 other questions that you have on the first question, and you'll need to be flexible and say, well, I think you've already asked my question. And some will be very succinct and be really quick and answer the questions quickly and very directly. Some won't. Some will give answers to questions you haven't asked. So that's just part of the interview process. So anything else?
I
Yeah.
did want to take just the opportunity to thank you all for the professional work that you are doing for us. We are so thankful for your team and the thoroughness and the quickness that the materials are being uploaded. I know a lot of us spent a lot of time this weekend in those materials already, but we could not do this alone. And we set a very aggressive timeline. This board set that timeline because we are ready to start school and know that this is so important for this community. And so just thank you for everything that you all are doing as we go through this. We need your leadership and your professional help, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We're here to please you and to make you feel like the process is a good one. If you have any suggestions for how you would like to do things differently, we would certainly be open to that. We work really hard to make our boards happy with the process and make you not worry about the process, but worry about the decision-making. So, anything else?
Do we have a time for the meeting on July 26th?
No, me and Sandra are actually working on that. We're trying to figure out a location and everything like that. So I'll be in touch.
That will be a closed meeting, an open meeting, of course, but with the only item being a closed session for personnel. So that, at this point, now that you have the applications, it's going to go into closed sessions where you're discussing confidential personnel information. But I think it's been good to share this information with your press and your public,
Right.
talk about what you're looking for, and we'll work with your with Chip to get you the profile. That'll be a public document as well. So we'll make sure that gets put out there as well as the other stuff.
Okay.
Is there anything else you need from us? Because we'll see you on the 26th, but you have a lot of homework. It sounds like y'all have been working hard at it.
Yeah.
Has everybody had ability to access their
Yes.
their stuff? So if you need anything else, like getting both sets of questions, we're happy to do that. Again, it's your process. So we are
Clear on what we're doing on the 26th. We are on the 26th. You're coming. We will have decided the questions, or we will be doing that on the 26th.
What we recommend is that you come each, or tell us at the meeting with 10 questions you wish to ask. But but the most important thing, you can do that later. If you each give us your 10 questions, we can compile those. We don't need to sit in the meeting and decide which questions.
We
So
should
just
come ready.
Come with a list of 10 questions you're interested personally in getting asked at the first interview, okay? And we can, like we did with this, we can compile that information. The main thing we needed to decide on, as Tanya said, is the presentation question, presuming you want to do that. We do recommend it. It's just a really good way of seeing how someone does their job, and 2 different ways of comparing how candidates work. And most boards really appreciate the information they get, even if they don't hire a candidate, because they get good ideas about what to do. So we have to pick the applicants. We recommend you choose between 7 and 10. That's the first order of business.
First order.
So bring your list of 7 to 10 candidates that you are interested in interviewing after you've reviewed them. So come prepared to give us your list. And what we'll do is we'll start out by saying, everybody go around and give me your 7 to 10 people. And then we'll see where we have consensus. This really streamlines the process. If everybody wants to interview somebody, then obviously that person will be interviewed. If no one wants to interview somebody, then obviously there's not a lot of discussion. And normally where you see most of the discussion is around the people. Some folks, they're around the people, some folks feel strongly about, and some folks are not interested in. So But if we come with your lists and everybody agrees, then we don't need to spend a lot of time having that discussion, okay? But this is the most inclusive stage of the process as well. You need to think about that at the interview stage. It is, if three of you feel really strongly about somebody, then the other folks may say, okay, well, if you really feel that strongly, we'll talk about them. So decide on who, we have to decide on when. We have set aside tentatively. I mean, I think part of the problem was you guys were gone a lot in August, so I think we have set aside, I think, from the 21st on, is that right? So asking you to keep your evenings available, starting August 24th. I think 24th, 25th, and then the following week, I think we had talked about scheduling the interviews. We do recommend about an hour and a half per interview with a little bit of time in between to breathe. So if you're talking about evenings, you can only do 2 in an evening. If you're talking about a weekend or a full day, you can do about 4. And that's as many as you can really tolerate, even though, there's more time.
Go through that timeline again, August 24th and 25th.
And that's when the first time all you folks were available. And then the week of the 28th of August.
And then August 28th.
With the whole week, that whole week, yeah.
And so you're suggesting that the 24th and the 25th and or the 28th during that week is when we will do the first round.
Or the weekend of the 26th and 27th. We'll decide on the 26th of this month which of those dates work for you, so bring your calendars. So what we need to decide again on the 26th is who, we need to decide where, we need to decide what you're going to ask, or have a process for that, and we need to decide when you're going to do these interviews, okay? Who, what, where, when.
Who, what, when, and where. All
okay.
Right. And you and Sandra will get together on some things about the where.
Right, me and Sandra are working
You
on
and
that.
Sandra are working.
That's correct.
On where, yeah, and I'd be glad, let me talk to you a little bit about what we
Okay.
think we're looking for as
Right.
well, okay, before, or I can talk to the two of you together if that would work.
Okay.
And maybe we could even talk about that at the end of this meeting. Okay, so, is everyone clear about what we're going to talk about?
Yes.
Come prepared with your list of candidates. At least think about a presentation question. Come prepared with your list of questions you want to ask, or if we can deal with that later if you're not ready. And then we'll get some options for where we might do that, and then bring your calendars so we can decide on when the interviews will be held.
Right.
I like that hard line of come with
Did I
those
miss
7 to
something?
10 those questions. So that we don't, because we're not going to have any time in August. We need to come with our questions, those 10 questions. You can't be soft with this group. You heard someone say be hard. Okay.
What we would do, what we could do if the board would like is maybe reach out to some facilities that we think would work in the area and then check their availability for those dates we just talked about in August. And then on July 26th, when we come, I can say this facility's available on the 24th, it's not on the 25th, and then you as a board can kind of decide where you want to have it.
That's
Is
fine.
that, I mean, and that way Sandra wouldn't, or Sandra?
Right,
Sandra?
yes.
Sandra wouldn't
Sandra.
have to do any of that, and you wouldn't either. I know you're busy, so.
That works.
If you let us do that, okay, thank you.
Yeah, did you hear her say, let us do more work for you, so it takes it off your staff? That's good.
That
That's
works
what
for
we're
me.
here for, right?
Okay.
We normally look for a place where it's confidential and there's a good meeting room, so, and we
Okay.
have we've done some in this area before, so we have some idea of what's out there.
nice chart for you,
Mm-hmm.
your name.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, that's
Thank you
all I have,
very
unless the
much.
board has any other questions. Thank you very
No, I
much.
think we're
for,
good. We'll be in touch.
everything.
Thank you all.
Pardon?
Our next item is our closed session, but I just wanted to say something really quick. For our viewer and audience. Can we get a camera on this poster right over Matt's head here? See if we can. I don't think the camera would have gotten you here. It's oh yeah, that's it. That's good right there. That's a good frame. I want you guys to look for this in our high schools, okay? And I think we're going to try to put it around in some other places too. I'd love to get it in our elementary schools and our middle schools. How about all our schools? This is a poster the idea was conceived during graduation to show all of the schools that our students were accepted into. And at the bottom of this poster, it has a list of all of our valedictorians and salutatorians. for the schools, for all of our high schools. And it also shows the amount of money our students got in scholarships. See, we have a lot of, we have a narrative out there about Durham Public Schools that isn't necessarily true. And this poster represents the positive side of that narrative, that we are doing great things for the students in Durham Public Schools. Do we have challenges? Absolutely. But we have successes also. $40 million in scholarships. I don't even know how many schools are up there on that list. It's really small, so we can fit it on the poster. But we are getting children into high-end schools. Princeton is up on that list. University of Chicago is up on that list. Stanford is on that list. There are a lot of schools, high-end schools, that our students are achieving to. And I just want that to be out there. I want people to understand that, yes, we have challenges. Yes, we have a long way to go. But this is a success. That was at 2,231 students that graduated in Durham Public Schools. We have to celebrate the celebrations that we have, the successes that we have. We have to work on the challenges that we have. But today, I just want to point to this calendar. I want to point everyone, if you see it, stop and take a look at it, because that is an awesome list of schools, an awesome list of students, and awesome statistics about what we're doing here in Durham Public Schools. And I want to thank the administration for putting this together, because when I walked in here and I saw this, I was so excited. I walked over there and I stood in front of it and I just couldn't stop looking at it, because that is exactly what we have to do to show our community that we do have successes here, and we are working on it. And we are working on making that list longer and that number higher. We're always working on that. And so I just appreciate that. I want to take a second to point that out to everyone involved, the PR group, Chip, everyone in your team, whoever got it together, thank you all.
And the teacher. And the teachers.
Yes, the
'Cause
teachers.
That's what's behind every one of those names.
That's right. That number from pre-K all the way up to graduation, the teachers, the administrators, the administration, thank you all for your hard work and putting that list together. So thank you all. I just want to give you a round of applause. I'll accept the motion to go into closed session.
May I ask that the motion include to consult with the board's attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege?
So added.
Move that we go into closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda and the addition from our attorney.
Second.
Been moved and properly second that we go into closed sessions for the reasons stated on the agenda and the reasons added by our attorney. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. We're in closed session. We had a lot to cover, though. We covered a lot. All right, we are now back in open session.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you have the personnel roster for your review and approval dated July 18th, 2017.
Move approval?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the personnel report for July 18th, 2017. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. It passes unanimously. We are now adjourned.